Today, the Goyt Valley, lying just a few miles northwest of Buxton in the Peak District National Park, is dominated by two large reservoirs. Fernilee to the north, constructed in 1937, and Errwood in the south, completed some 30 years later in 1968. Beneath the waters at the southern end of Errwood Reservoir lie the remains of the ancient hamlet of Goytsbridge. Roman soldiers once marched through here on their way to and from the historic spa town of Buxton, famed for its clear, clean waters. In later times, teams of pack horses passed through, crossing over the River Goyt, which divided Cheshire to the west from Derbyshire to the east, carrying everything from salt from the Cheshire brines to coal and stone from local mines and quarries. Although the reservoirs have completely changed the natural landscape, the surrounding area provides a wonderful habitat for a wide variety of birds, trees and plants, as well as some great footpaths, many of which are featured on the companion website at www.goyt-valley.org.uk. The evocative ruins of Errwood Hall, the country house of the Grimshaw family who once owned the estate, lie a short distance from the reservoir. This 1890s map shows the same area before the waters of the reservoir rose to submerge it. Nothing now remains of Goytsbridge except a small packhorse bridge which once spanned the wonderfully named Wild Moorstone Brook and was rebuilt a short distance upstream in 1965. The River Goyt joined the brook just a few yards from the historic bridge over a series of large stepping stones. This grainy cinefilm, showing a well-dressed family crossing the stepping stones towards the packhorse bridge, was taken in 1932, shortly before the buildings in Goytsbridge were demolished. Stockport Corporation had purchased the land 2 years earlier to construct the twin reservoirs, following the death of Mary, the last of the Grimshaw family who had lived at Errwood Hall since its construction in the mid-1840s. And although this part of the valley wouldn't be flooded for another 30 years, the planners ordered the demolition of some 20 farmhouses on the estate, as well as Errwood Hall. A way of life which had existed in the valley since time immemorial came to a sudden end. These images from postcards, many dating back over 100 years, showed just what was lost when the valley was flooded, the hamlet of Goytsbridge in all its scenic glory. There were 3 houses in Goytsbridge, 2 farmhouses and the gatehouse to Errwood Hall, called Errwood Cottage. Goyt's Head and Goytsbridge Farm lay either side of the packhorse bridge. Both served teas to the many visitors who flocked to the valley. This whole photo shows Goyt's Head Farm, with 2 elderly ladies on the far left, perched on the bridge, and in the background a couple of younger ladies sit at a table in the garden. Another view shows a large group of all ages about to enjoy high tea at Goyt's Head Farmhouse, the table covered in delicate chinaware. In the distance, along the lane, it's just possible to make out Errwood Cottage, the gatehouse which stood alongside the entrance to Errwood Hall. This rare view of the valley shows Errwood Cottage in the foreground. Goyt's Head Farm is to the far left. The River Goyt is just out of view as it runs alongside the lane, from left to right. 2 stone gateposts stand either side of the lane leading up to Errwood Hall, and it's just possible to make out the roofline of the hall in the far distance. The family's Catholic chapel was situated on the top floor turret, with a lamp left burning throughout the night which could be seen for miles around. Errwood Cottage appears briefly in the 1932 cine film. This would have been taken shortly before the attractive house was demolished. This hand-coloured photo, looking towards Errwood Cottage, was taken from near to the Packhorse Bridge, with the Goyt flowing over the stepping stones on its journey north to eventually join the River Mersey near Stockport. The house was far grander than a cottage and must have either been built or considerably improved and extended by the Grimshaw family following their purchase of the estate in 1832. It was also known as Gatehouse and Gardener's Cottage, so it would have probably been divided into two properties. There was a large greenhouse in the grounds which can be seen in this photo, so I'm guessing it would have been the Gardener's Cottage on the left and the Gatehouse on the right. At one time the cottage was home to the Grimshaw's head butler, Ignatius Oisibel, and his family. His wife, Bridget, taught in a small one-room school which lay just behind the cottage. The Grimshaws used the cottage as a guest house for visiting friends and family. This is one of a series of photographs taken of an annual shooting party and is dated 1881. The friends are posing in front of the cottage doorway. The young man standing by the window, looking into the camera, is captioned as Francis Upton Gaskell, a cousin of the Grimshaw sisters, Mary and Genevieve. At the other end of the social scale is this group of estate workers and servants, pictured in front of the gates beside Errwood Cottage. What a wonderful set of characters they look, but I wouldn't fancy the chances of any poachers they caught. This charming photo shows young children of all ages outside the small schoolhouse. Errwood School was maintained by the Grimshaw family and would have provided a very basic education to the children of local tenant farmers and estate workers throughout the valley. The schoolhouse lay close to Shooter's Clough, which cascaded down the slope and under the road before flowing into the Goyt. Errwood School is shown on the 1890s map, lying between Shooter's Clough and the lane leading from Errwood Cottage up to Errwood Hall. This Google Earth image shows where it lies today, opposite the modern bridge near to Errwood car park. The remains of the lane to Errwood Hall run under the bridge, and it's still possible to see traces of it when the water level drops. It's difficult not to feel sad when visiting the ruins of what was once a magnificent country house, which must have enjoyed wonderful views across the valley. I'm not sure exactly when it was demolished. It was used as a youth hostel for a couple of years after Mary Grimshaw's death in 1930 and was probably demolished soon after. It's said that Stockport Corporation planners feared that the drains from the hall would pollute the waters of the reservoir, but this seems a poor excuse. This wonderfully detailed lithoprint by the Italian-born architect of the hall, Alexandre Rousse, dates back to around 1840 and is now held in Buxton Museum. Thanks to the kind support of many other lovers of the valley, I've managed to collect quite a few images of the hall on the website. This photograph was probably taken in the 1920s, from exactly the same viewpoint as the architect's drawing some 80 years earlier. Samuel Grimshaw, a wealthy Manchester merchant, had purchased the 2,010-acre Errwood estate in 1832 from John Jodrell for £9,250. Building work on the hall was overseen by his son, also called Samuel. We know that the younger Samuel and his wife Jessie were living at the hall in 1850, as census records show that their son had been born here, Arthur, also known affectionately as yet another Samuel. But tragedy struck the family the following year. Both Samuel's one-year-old son and his father died. Samuel converted to Catholicism during the same year, perhaps searching for solace for his grief. This family chapel, decorated in typically ornate Catholic style, was housed in the top-storey turret. The Grimshaw's family crest once stood proudly above the main entrance, carved in stone, and is still here today, although badly damaged by the years. This is one of my favourite photos of the hall, showing the fountain in the centre of the south-facing ornamental gardens. It's even possible to make out some of the interior furniture and furnishings, through the open doorway and two large windows. The gardens are clearly shown on the old map. It is still possible to make out faint traces and even find the odd faced stone which once surrounded the borders on the ground today. At the far end of the gardens stood a magnificent arch, bearing a large G for Grimshaw and a cartouche above. I have a few photos of the Grimshaw family and friends posing on the steps. This debonair gentleman is Captain the Right Honourable Edward Preston. The ladies are his close relatives. Captain Preston married Genevieve, the younger of the two Grimshaw daughters, in 1891. The arch has long since gone, but the stone steps remain. They lead up to a small hilltop cemetery. The central cross commemorates Samuel Grimshaw and his wife Jessie, as well as their infant son. Other names inscribed here are the two Grimshaw sisters, Mary and Genevieve, as well as their husbands, Hellier Gosselin and Captain Preston. The smaller crosses mark the graves of close friends and long-serving servants. Neither Mary or Genevieve had any children. This photo shows the two sisters in 1926, peering shyly from a doorway after opening Fernilee Village Hall. Genevieve died in 1929 and Mary the following year in 1930. Stockport Corporation had already concluded an agreement with Mary to purchase the estate following her death to build the twin reservoirs. This cine film was taken at the same time as the one at Goyt Bridge and shows that work on Fernilee Reservoir was well underway by 1932. This well-dressed farmer, herding sheep through the construction work, would soon be forced from the land. The last tenant farmers left in 1936. In many ways it's sad that both Errwood Hall and the picturesque hamlet of Goyt Bridge, as well as many small farmhouses, have vanished from the landscape. But the estate is well managed, both by the Forestry Commission and United Utilities, as well as the many unpaid volunteers who spend their leisure time working in the valley. And it does provide some wonderful walks across open countryside. So perhaps the farmer's loss is our gain. I hope you've enjoyed this short video and that you'll visit the companion website at www.goyt-valley.org.uk, where there's many more photos, including longer versions of the films at Goyt Bridge and Fernilee Reservoir, lots more information on the social history of the valley, as well as many detailed walks through this uniquely picturesque part of the Peak District National Park. Thanks for watching.